Men are moved by two levers only, fear and self-interest. Napoleon Bonaparte, they tell you everyone is inherently good. They tell you that with enough understanding, enough compassion, you can reach anyone. This is a lie whispered by those who benefit from your weakness. Human nature, stripped bare of its social veneer, is not a blank slate waiting to be filled with kindness. It is a battleground, a constant struggle for dominance, resources, and survival. To believe otherwise is to walk unarmed into a den of wolves, convinced they are all secretly sheep. The world is populated by those who will exploit your empathy, who will see your willingness to trust as an invitation to betray. This is not cynicism, it is observation, a cold, hard assessment of the forces at play. There are predators and there are prey, and ignorance is the most tempting bait of all. The inherent goodness myth is a tool. It is wielded by manipulators to disarm you, to lower your guard. They want you to believe that everyone is operating under the same ethical code, the same sense of fairness. But while you are playing by the rules, they are rewriting them. While you are extending a hand in friendship, they are preparing to strike. Look around you. Observe the subtle power plays in every interaction, the constant jockeying for position, the unspoken desires masked by polite smiles. Human beings are not angels waiting to be awakened. They are complex, flawed creatures driven by self-interest. Understanding this is not an endorsement of cruelty, but a shield against it. It is the first step towards self-preservation. Naive trust is a luxury you cannot afford. It is a vulnerability that will be exploited. This does not mean you must become paranoid, suspecting malice in every gesture. It means you must cultivate discernment. Learn to read beneath the surface. Pay attention to actions, not words. Observe patterns of behavior. Trust your instincts, which have evolved over millennia to detect threats. Those who preach universal goodness often have a hidden agenda. They may be seeking to control you through guilt or obligation. They may be trying to create a world where their own manipulative tactics go unchallenged. Do not fall for this trap. Recognize the darkness that exists within human nature, and you will be better equipped to navigate the world with wisdom and strength. The comforting narrative of inherent goodness is a sedative. It dulls your senses, making you less aware of the dangers that surround you. It encourages complacency, a belief that everything will work out if you just remain positive and trusting. But the universe is indifferent to your optimism. It rewards those who are prepared, those who are vigilant, those who understand the true nature of the game. To deny the capacity for evil within humanity is to deny reality itself. It is to blind yourself to the suffering and injustice that pervade the world, and by doing so, you become complicit in perpetuating that suffering. Embrace the truth, however uncomfortable it may be. Only then can you begin to build a foundation of genuine strength and resilience. Only then can you protect yourself and those you care about from the darkness that lurks in the hearts of others. The veneer of civilization is thin. Scratch the surface and you'll find the raw, untamed impulses that have driven human behavior since the dawn of time. The desire for power, the hunger for resources, the primal instinct for survival, these forces are not eradicated by education or social conditioning. They are merely suppressed, waiting for the opportunity to erupt. Consider the history of warfare. Each generation claims to have learned from the mistakes of the past, to have transcended the barbarity of their ancestors. And yet, conflict continues to plague the world, fueled by the same ancient passions that drove tribes to clash over territory and dominance. Look at the subtle betrayals that occur in everyday life, the backstabbing in the workplace, the petty jealousies that poison relationships, the casual indifference to the suffering of others. These are not aberrations. They are manifestations of the inherent selfishness that lies dormant within us all. We are capable of great acts of kindness and compassion, but these acts are often motivated by self-interest, a desire to be seen as virtuous, a hope for reciprocation. Even altruism, at its core, can be traced back to the survival of the gene pool, a subconscious drive to protect those who share our genetic heritage. This is not to say that genuine goodness does not exist, but it is rare and often fragile, easily corrupted by temptation or fear. The delusion of universal morality is a weapon used by the cunning to exploit the naive. Those who proclaim the inherent goodness of humanity often do so to disarm their opponents, to lull them into a false sense of security. They appeal to our better nature, hoping to manipulate us through guilt and shame. They present themselves as paragons of virtue, while secretly pursuing their own selfish agendas. History is replete with examples of tyrants who cloaked their brutality in the language of idealism, who promised utopia while building empires on the backs of the oppressed. The French Revolution, with its lofty ideals of liberty, equality, and fraternity, descended into a reign of terror. The communist regimes of the 20th century, with their promises of a classless society, resulted in the deaths of millions. These were not accidents. They were the inevitable consequences of ignoring the dark side of human nature, of believing that utopian visions could be imposed on a world that is fundamentally flawed. The competent individual understands that morality is a tool, a social construct that can be used to manipulate and control. They do not reject morality outright, but they are wary of its seductive power. They recognize that true strength lies not in blind adherence to dogma, but in the ability to discern the hidden motives behind moral pronouncements. Therefore, cultivate a healthy skepticism. Question everything you are told, especially when it appeals to your emotions. Examine the evidence, consider the source, and draw your own conclusions. Do not be swayed by popular opinion or the pronouncements of authority figures. Remember that even the most charismatic leaders can be motivated by selfish desires, and be especially wary of those who claim to have all the answers. The world is a complex and ambiguous place, and anyone who pretends to have a complete understanding of it is either a fool or a liar. The wise individual embraces uncertainty, acknowledging the limits of their own knowledge. They are constantly learning, constantly adapting, constantly refining their understanding of the world. They do not cling to fixed beliefs, but are willing to change their minds in the face of new evidence. This requires intellectual honesty, a willingness to confront uncomfortable truths, even when they challenge our own deeply held convictions. It also requires courage, the strength to stand alone against the crowd, to speak truth to power, to defend your principles even when it is unpopular or dangerous. The ability to read people is paramount. Learn to decipher the subtle cues that betray their true intentions. Pay attention to their body language, their tone of voice, their microexpressions. Observe how they interact with others, how they react to stress, how they handle adversity. Look for inconsistencies between their words and their actions. Are they saying one thing but doing another? Are they making promises they cannot keep? Are they trying to manipulate you through flattery or intimidation? Trust your intuition, but do not rely on it blindly. Intuition is a valuable tool, but it can be easily misled by biases and prejudices. Corroborate your hunches with concrete evidence. Gather as much information as possible before making a judgment, and be prepared to revise your assessment as new information becomes available. Remember that people are complex and contradictory beings, capable of both great good and great evil. Do not fall into the trap of stereotyping or labeling them. Judge them based on their actions, not on their appearance or their affiliations. And always be aware of your own biases and prejudices, which can cloud your judgment and lead you astray. Master the art of deception. This does not mean becoming a pathological liar, but rather learning how to conceal your true intentions and protect yourself from manipulation. Understand that information is power, and the more you reveal about yourself, the more vulnerable you become. Learn to control your emotions, to project an image of calm and confidence, even when you are feeling anxious or uncertain. Practice active listening, paying close attention to what others are saying without revealing your own thoughts or feelings. Ask probing questions, but avoid giving away too much information about yourself. Use silence to your advantage, allowing others to fill the void with their own words, and be prepared to dissemble when necessary. A well-placed lie can be a powerful weapon, but it should be used sparingly and only as a last resort. The goal is not to deceive for the sake of deception, but to protect yourself and your interests in a world where trust is a rare and valuable commodity. Remember that the most effective lies are those that are closest to the truth. They are based on facts, but carefully crafted to create a false impression. And they are delivered with conviction, as if they were the absolute truth. Finally, accept the inevitability of betrayal. No matter how careful you are, no matter how much you trust someone, there will always be a risk of being betrayed. People are inherently unpredictable, and even the most loyal allies can be swayed by temptation or circumstance. Do not be surprised when it happens, and do not let it destroy you. Learn from your mistakes, forgive yourself, and move on. The key is to develop resilience, the ability to bounce back from adversity and emerge stronger than before. Cultivate a strong sense of self-worth, based on your own values and accomplishments, not on the approval of others. Build a support network of trusted friends and family members who will stand by you in times of trouble. And remember that even in the darkest of times, there is always hope. The human spirit is capable of enduring incredible hardship, and even after the most devastating betrayals, it is possible to rebuild your life and find happiness again. The world is a harsh and unforgiving place, but it is also full of beauty and wonder. Do not let the darkness consume you. Embrace the light, cultivate your strengths, and strive to become the best version of yourself. By understanding the depths of human depravity, you paradoxically equip yourself to appreciate and foster genuine goodness, becoming a beacon of strength in a world desperately in need of it. The awareness of potential corruption serves not to promote cynicism, but to sharpen your discernment and fortify your inner resolve, allowing you to navigate the treacherous currents of human interaction with wisdom and unwavering self-possession. Consider the career of Marcus Junius Brutus, often romanticized as a noble defender of the Roman Republic. The popular narrative paints him as a selfless idealist who sacrificed his friendship with Julius Caesar for the greater good. A closer examination, however, reveals a far more complex and unsettling picture, one that exposes the corrosive effects of power, ambition, and self-deception on human nature. Brutus was not merely a reluctant participant in Caesar's assassination. He was a central figure, driven by a potent mix of personal resentment and political calculation, cloaked in the language of civic virtue. His family had a long history of opposition to Caesar, and Brutus himself had benefited greatly from Caesar's patronage, receiving high office and significant influence. This created a deep sense of obligation, but also a simmering resentment at being indebted to a man he considered a tyrant. The assassination of Caesar was not a spontaneous act of patriotic fervor. It was a carefully planned conspiracy, orchestrated by a group of senators who feared Caesar's growing power and his ambition to become king. Brutus, despite his close relationship with Caesar, was drawn into this plot, motivated by a combination of genuine concern for the Republic and a desire to advance his own career. He saw himself as a savior of Rome, a champion of liberty, but his actions were also driven by personal ambition and a thirst for power. The aftermath of Caesar's assassination was disastrous. Instead of restoring the Republic, it plunged Rome into a period of civil war, as rival factions battled for control. Brutus and his fellow conspirators were eventually defeated by the forces of Mark Antony and Octavian, and Brutus himself committed suicide after the Battle of Philippi. His death marked the end of the Roman Republic and the beginning of the Roman Empire, a far cry from the freedom and stability he had hoped to achieve. Brutus's story is a cautionary tale about the dangers of self-deception and the corrupting influence of power. He convinced himself that he was acting in the best interests of Rome, but his actions were ultimately driven by personal ambition and a flawed understanding of human nature. He underestimated the ruthlessness of his opponents and the fragility of the Republic, and his attempts to restore it only led to its destruction. The tragedy of Brutus lies not only in his failure, but also in his blindness to his own motivations. He believed he was acting out of pure altruism, but his actions were tainted by ego and a miscalculation of the political landscape. This self-deception blinded him to the true consequences of his actions and ultimately led to his downfall. His narrative serves as a stark reminder that even those who claim to act in the name of virtue can be corrupted by power and self-interest, and that even the noblest intentions can pave the way to disastrous outcomes. The Roman Senate, a supposedly esteemed assembly of wise men, was in reality a viper's nest of ambition, jealousy, and backstabbing. Political alliances shifted constantly, and loyalty was a rare commodity. The senators were constantly vying for power, seeking to advance their own careers and enrich themselves at the expense of the Republic. Caesar's rise to power was facilitated by this climate of corruption and self-interest. He was a master manipulator who knew how to exploit the weaknesses of his opponents and to buy the support of his allies. He used his wealth and influence to bribe senators, to control elections, and to build a personal following that was fiercely loyal to him. The senators who opposed Caesar were often motivated by personal resentment or fear of losing their own power. They saw him as a threat to the Republic, but they were also afraid of his popularity and his ability to crush his enemies. Brutus, in his attempt to restore the Republic, became entangled in this web of intrigue and self-interest. He believed he could purify the political system by assassinating Caesar, but he failed to understand the depth of the corruption that had taken root in Roman society. His actions only served to unleash chaos and violence, and to pave the way for an even more autocratic regime. This historical episode underscores the persistent danger of unchecked ambition and the fragility of even the most established institutions in the face of human fallibility. It is a stark reminder that ideals, however noble, are vulnerable to manipulation, and that the pursuit of power, even when cloaked in the guise of public service, can lead to devastating consequences. The story of Brutus serves as a chilling example of how easily even the most well-intentioned individuals can be led astray by their own desires and by the corrosive influence of their environment, ultimately contributing to the very downfall they sought to prevent. His legacy is a testament to the enduring power of human nature to undermine even the most idealistic endeavors, a cautionary tale for those who seek to wield power or to enact change in a world rife with competing interests and hidden agendas. The assumption of inherent goodness is a dangerous fallacy, for it blinds one to the potential for corruption that resides within every individual, regardless of their public persona or proclaimed virtue. The belief in inherent goodness acts as a fatal blind spot, preventing one from recognizing the subtle signs of decay that inevitably creep into systems and individuals alike. This naivete is a vulnerability, an open invitation for exploitation by those who understand the darker currents of human motivation. They see the world not as it should be, but as it is, a battleground for scarce resources, where trust is a liability and empathy a weakness. The trap lies in assuming that others share your values, that they are governed by